Hi, Morgan here for Onefinity, and today we're going to take a big step back. When I started working for Onefinity, I'd done a ton of video work, but not much CNC. So I was pretty much starting from scratch. And over the last few years, I've been pushing myself to learn all sorts of new techniques and interesting ways to use the machine, but I forgot that a lot of folks are just now getting into CNC and need some more foundational knowledge. Like when I'm covering a process in a project video and I say probe for X, Y, and Z, I assume that everybody already knows how to do that. Can't make that assumption. So that's what I'm here to do today. A lot of people are starting to get their Gen 2 Elites with the Redline controller, and as those come in, I'm going to be showing you guys how to, once it's set up, start small, take your first steps to get this machine up and running. And something everybody should be doing when they first set their CNC up is flattening the wasteboard. So we're going to be doing that toward the end of the video. Stick around, I'm going to show you how to do that, and you can hit the ground running with your first project. And if you've already been using your machine successfully making projects, this video probably won't be all that helpful to you. But feel free to watch it, and maybe it'll just kind of refresh something that you might have forgotten. Okay, so I'm going to be specific about where we're starting here. Ideally, you're watching this video after you've assembled your CNC and installed your toolpathing software. In this video, we'll be focusing on using CarveCo. Your license key will be provided to you by Onefinity, and the software installs the same as any other software. Now, what if you get your machine, put it together, try to install CarveCo, and you're stuck because you have a Mac? Well, I have a solution for that. Currently, CarveCo only runs on Windows, but does that mean you have to go out and get a whole new computer? Heck no. I use a Mac, and I run CarveCo on it flawlessly with a program called Parallels Desktop. It creates a virtual machine, which basically just allows you to run a Windows operating system on a Mac. Now, there is a cost associated with it, but it works great, and it's way cheaper than having to go buy a whole new computer. All right, once you've got your software installed, there's a few things you'll need to set up to move forward. First thing is importing tool libraries so that when you're programming a toolpath, you can easily tell that software which bit you'll be using for each process. Second is specifying your post processor. Post processors basically turn the toolpath that you've programmed into a digital language specific to a machine that the machine can understand and execute. Now let's start with importing some tool libraries. There are tons of bit manufacturers out there, and they all make basically the same thing as far as the software is concerned when it comes to toolpathing. Like here's two different spiral end mills from different manufacturers, both great, and as far as the software is concerned, it would toolpath them the exact same way. All that to say, you don't need to import every tool library for every brand of bits you have. Two brands I recommend and are available on our website are Cadence Manufacturing and Bits and Bits. I'll put the link to both of those websites in the description. In CarveCo, we'll open a new model and set the size to the dimensions of your machine. So if you have a woodworker, you'd put in 32 by 32. If you have a journeyman, 32 by 48, and so on and so forth. This is a Gen 2 Elite Foreman, so I'm putting in 49 inches by 49 inches, and I almost always make my work origin in the bottom left corner. Hit OK, and the model opens up. The model you see here in yellow represents the total cutting area of your machine. We'll need to create a vector in order to create a toolpath. So click on the Create Rectangle button over here on the left, and you'll see the rectangle creation box open up here on the right. You'll select whether it's a rectangle or a square, input the dimensions of the wasteboard so it takes up almost the entire space, and the center point will be right smack in the middle of the model. I'm making mine a little bit shorter on the y-axis because I have some accessories I'm going to put on the front rail of the QCW, and I don't want to have to move the wasteboard later on to fit them in there. To flatten your wasteboard, make sure the square vector you just made is selected and click on Toolpaths over here on the right, then click Area Clearance Toolpath. And here we can select our flattening bit and how it's going to cut. Now you'll notice that the specific bit you want to use may not be listed in the available bit options. You'll need to import a tool library so that CarveCo knows the geometry of the bit, which is what allows it to toolpath accurately. You can usually find a tool library to download on the bit manufacturer's website. To import a tool library, click Add in the Tools List section, then Import. Locate the tool library you just downloaded. It'll have a .tdb file extension, and click Open. Now you'll see a bunch of new tools in the list. Just find it in the directory and click Select. I'll be using a 2-inch diameter flattening bit from Whiteside. The default feed and speed settings from the manufacturer are usually pretty reliable, but I'm gonna just tweak this one a little bit. 5 inches per minute plunge rate is insanely slow. So I'm gonna bump that up to 100, and I'm gonna, 15,000 RPM sounds right, and we'll run it at 120 inches per minute. When the 2D area clearance window opens up, you'll see the cutting depth section. Start depth will be 0, meaning the starting point on that axis will be the top surface of the material. I like to flatten pretty conservatively because there really isn't much variation in height or thickness on MDF. So I'm gonna set my depth to 0.02 inches. That's 20,000ths of an inch. And I've got my bit selected. Feeds and speeds look good. I'm just gonna change the toolpathing strategy from raster to offset. Let's give it a name and click Calculate Now. If you want to see a quick animated preview of how the carve will be executed, open the simulation control bar and hit play. Everything looks right, so let's save the toolpath to a G-code file. You'll need to make sure that you have the correct post-processor selected. So under the post-processor list, scroll down until you see your machine. This is the Onefinity Redline Elite. Make sure your toolpath is over here on the right column, select the destination, and save it. That file will go on a thumb drive and we'll bring it over to the machine. Boop. And welcome to the machine. Make sure that the main power switch on the back of the controller is in the on position. If you have a spindle installed, power that on as well by pressing the button on the front. Then press the button over here on the right side. Make sure that the e-stop button isn't engaged by twisting the red part. Turn it either until it stops or it pops up. Now, when you first fire up the machine, you may see that your DRO is showing error 14 on the screen. All that means is that the VFD and the controller aren't yet communicating. So just hit the stop/reset button and there you go. You're ready to rock. So when it powers up, the first thing you're gonna wanna do is connect it to Wi-Fi. So tap on the hamburger icon here, then config. In the config screen, find the network tab, then tap scan, and the controller will look for nearby Wi-Fi signals. Find your home network on the list and enter your password to connect. Once your controller connects to your network, click on the hamburger icon again, and right under config, you'll see update. Tap on that. It says there's new firmware available. Yes, I would like to update. It'll install the latest firmware, reboot itself, then bring us right back to the main screen we saw when we first powered up the machine. All right, now that your firmware is all up to date, we can move on to the fun stuff. The first thing you're gonna do is home the machine. The reason we do that is when you turn on the machine, it doesn't know where the spindle is in relation to its machinable area. By tapping home all, the machine will first move the Z slider up as high as it can go, then left along the X axis as far as it can go, then forward along the Y axis as far as it'll go. From this home position, the machine now knows its travel limitations for each axis. Now you can just jog the X rail toward the back using either the controls on the HMI screen or with a joypad. We're just moving it away so that we have some clearance to plop on this wasteboard. And bring the spindle back to the machine's home position and install the bit you'll be using to flatten the wasteboard. Now lower the Z axis down to where the bit's hovering just slightly over the material. Make sure the outermost wings of the bit just slightly overhang both edges of the material, right at the corner. Get the wasteboard as square as you can to the QCW frame. Now you can counterbore some screw holes and screw it down to the QCW. Just make sure to avoid the T-track underneath. And make sure the screws are deep enough that they won't get run over by the bit while it's flattening. We're only taking 20,000ths of an inch off, so it doesn't need to be super deep. Just go with an 1/8 inch or something like that. Once you've got the wasteboard secured down to the QCW, you'll need to set your work origin. Now, because this is going to be cutting across the entirety of the cutting area, the work origin will be almost the same as the machine's default home position. Remember, we scooted it back a little bit to make room for the accessories. So we're going to need to jog back along the Y-axis just a little bit. Just jog it back and make sure the front edge of the wasteboard is pretty closely aligned with the apex of the cutter's rotation. Now you can go ahead and zero out your X and Y axes by tapping these buttons right here. And now to zero out the Z axis. I'm going to zero out my Z axis somewhere near the center of the wasteboard. I figure if there's any variation in thickness or height, the average of that variation is most likely to be near the center of the piece. Now, I don't know how scientific that is, that's just something that I believe with no data whatsoever, at least that I'm aware of, to support it. Take it or leave it. Anyway, I'm going to turn it upside down so that the flat part is sitting on the material and the machine part is facing up. Attach the magnet here to the collet. Make sure that when the bit comes down, it touches off the lowest point of the probe, not the shoulders. On the main screen under the probe tab, tap on probe Z. Now just follow the animated setup wizard's instructions. Touch the probe block to the bit and start probing. Once the probing is complete, you can run your program. Before doing that though, let's get the dust collection set up. Now, I don't usually use a dust boot in my project videos because with it on, you can't really see the carve. And that's kind of the whole point of doing a video. But for this, I'm definitely going to use it because we're flattening MDF here. The Sucka dust boot fits over and secures right onto the spindle with the twist of this one knob. To properly position the dust boot, loosen the knob and slide it higher up on the spindle. Lower the bit down to just over the material. Now lower the dust boot to where the bristles of the brush are just resting on top of the material. Then tighten the knob to secure to the spindle. And obviously connect your vacuum hose to the hose port on the dust boot. And now we're ready to run the flattening toolpath. Wow. I know that may have seemed like a lot, but don't worry. The more you run your CNC, the more these orders of operation just kind of become second nature, and you'll start doing this stuff faster and without even having to think about it. So that's something to look forward to. All right, now we're going to import and load the toolpath file from the thumb drive. All the way at the top here, tap on Files, then Import, and locate the flattening toolpath file in the directory. Files are organized basically the same way that they would be on a computer. Select your file, then tap Import. The file goes to the onboard directory of files that have already been imported. They're listed alphabetically by default, but to find the most recent imported file, you can change the view by tapping Date Modified. The most recently imported file should be at the very bottom. Select it, then tap Open. And you'll see the G-code load up here on the left. Okay, one last thing before we run the toolpath, we got to run the warm-up cycle for the spindle. Kind of like a new pair of shoes, the spindle needs to be broken in a little bit for all the parts to settle into place and move comfortably. It's very easy and it helps improve the spindle's performance and longevity. On the main screen, tap on the Spindle tab, then tap on this icon here that looks like 3 earthworms spooning, and this shows you the spindle warm-up sequence. No need to change any of these parameters, just hit start. And the way that it's set up right now, the spindle warm-up sequence takes about 15 minutes, so just go grab yourself a snack. Treat yourself. After the warm-up sequence is complete, fire up your vacuum and hit go. Now, this presumably being the first time you're running your machine can be a little bit nerve-wracking, so what I recommend is just kind of hovering your finger over the pause button right here when it first starts. And if you're super worried about it, just keep your hand hovering over this E-stop, and if anything goes sideways right at the beginning of the carve, boom, everything stops. And we're just gonna let that run to completion while we listen to this banger. Done. Now you're all set up to start cutting on your Onefinity CNC. Now you know how to create a G-code file in CarveCo, save it, load it onto the controller, set your work origin, and execute a toolpath. Well done, but that's only half the battle. Some feedback that we've gotten from a lot of first-time users is, okay, now I understand how to operate the machine. How do I design stuff to actually cut? And that's a great question, probably one that deserves its own video. There's some great design tools out there that you can use to create your own designs rather than relying on native clip art or purchased cut files. So if you'd like to see a full video on design tools available for CNC users, let me know in the comments. That's pretty much everything you need to know to get your machine from assembled to working. There's so many things that you can do with a CNC, from very simple to very complex, and it wouldn't be practical or even possible to put a how-to for all those processes in this video. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some links in the description to resources that I've found helpful in my CNC journey. Some of them are from us, some of them are from other resources that we trust. I think one very important part of being a CNC user is the time you spend researching and experimenting. With a CNC, like most things, there's 1,000 ways to skin a cat. So try different techniques, play around, find 5 different ways to accomplish the same result, and with each project, you learn more about the machine and how you want to use it. And like I said earlier, start small and try new things as you become more and more comfortable with the machine. And one of the best resources I can recommend would be the Onefinity user forum. We built a community of users that come together online to share ideas, show what they've learned, answer each other's questions, and just generally build each other up. So I highly recommend getting active on the forum. All right, well that's all I have for you today. I hope this was helpful in getting you up and running on your new machine. As always, thank you so much for watching. Y'all be good.